J.P. Morgan, one of America's most powerful banks, had financial links to Germany long before Hitler's rise. After World War I, J.P. Morgan helped structure German reparations and loans through the Dawes and Young plans. These loans stabilized Germany's economy, but they also created deep financial ties between Wall Street and German industry. When the Nazis came to power in 1933, those networks didn't disappear. J.P. Morgan was part of international banking syndicates that continued to handle German bonds and investments, giving the new regime access to foreign credit markets. While J.P. Morgan did not openly support Hitler, its willingness to keep business flowing indirectly strengthened Germany's finances as it rearmed. For critics, this showed how major banks prioritized stability and profit, even if that meant sustaining a dictatorship preparing for war. Deutsche Bank went far beyond financial neutrality. It became one of the Nazi regime's most important financial arms. The bank orchestrated and profited from Aryanization, the systematic seizure of Jewish-owned businesses. Thousands of Jewish companies were forced into bankruptcy or sold under duress, often for pennies on the dollar, and Deutsche Bank arranged and approved these transfers. But the most damning evidence of the bank's involvement was its direct financing of Auschwitz. Loans from Deutsche Bank helped pay for the construction and expansion of the concentration camp's infrastructure, including factories where forced laborers toiled under horrific conditions. This wasn't indirect support. It was active participation in genocide. After the war, Allied investigators documented these actions, and later company-commissioned studies confirmed them. Deutsche Bank has since admitted its complicity, but its role illustrates how finance was weaponized in the service of mass murder. Standard Oil, the American petroleum giant, also played a critical part in keeping the Nazi war machine running. Germany had no large natural oil reserves, so it relied on synthetic fuels and imported technology. Standard Oil, through partnerships with German firms like IG Farben, supplied patents, technology, and vital fuel additives such as tetraethyl lead. This compound was essential for high-performance aviation fuel. Without it, the Luftwaffe's planes would have been severely limited. Even after war broke out in Europe, Standard Oil subsidiaries were accused of continuing to provide technical assistance through neutral countries. Court cases and Senate investigations after the war revealed that these ties allowed Nazi Germany to maintain its air force at a time when Allied soldiers and civilians were dying under German bombs. Standard Oil executives defended themselves by claiming they were honoring pre-war contracts, but historians argue that the company's collaboration directly prolonged the war and cost lives. L'Oréal, the global cosmetics leader, was shaped by its founder, Eugène Schueller. In the 1930s, Schueller was not just a businessman, but an active supporter of fascism. He financed and hosted La Cagoule, a violent French far-right group that carried out assassinations and bombings, and which maintained close ties to Nazi Germany. When France fell in 1940, Schueller maintained relationships with members of the Vichy regime, which collaborated with Hitler in deporting Jews and enforcing racial laws. L'Oréal benefited from these networks, continuing to grow even under occupation. Unlike some companies that cooperated simply to survive, Schueller's activities show ideological alignment with fascist politics. The worst stain on L'Oréal's history is that its founder used company resources to aid a movement aligned with Nazi goals, intertwining business expansion with extremist ideology. Dr. Oetker, famous today for its baking products and frozen pizzas, was a committed supporter of Hitler's regime. Rudolf August Oetker, the company heir, voluntarily joined the Waffen-SS, the paramilitary group that ran concentration camps and carried out mass killings. The company supplied food to the German army, profiting directly from the war effort. But its complicity didn't end in 1945. After the war, the Oetker family rehired senior Nazis, including Richard Kasolowski, a director with close ties to Hitler's circle. Internal investigations later revealed that the company not only supported the Nazis during the war, but also helped rehabilitate their former functionaries in post-war Germany. For decades, Dr. Oetker benefited from this network. showing how a brand many see as harmless comfort food was deeply entangled with both Nazi crimes and their legacy. Fanta's history is one of marketing ingenuity in the service of a dictatorship. Coca-Cola had built a strong market in Germany, but once war broke out, trade restrictions cut off syrup supplies from the US. Instead of shutting down Coca-Cola's German head, Max Keith created a new drink in 1940 from whatever ingredients were available: whey, apple pomace, and beet sugar. The product was called Fanta, short for fantasy. It quickly became a bestseller, consumed across Nazi Germany, including at rallies and military events. Fanta was not just a survival product, it allowed Coca-Cola's German operations to continue thriving during the war, keeping the brand embedded in the Nazi economy. For many, the shocking part of the story is that one of today's most cheerful sodas was born as a workaround to keep profits flowing in Hitler's Germany. The Associated Press, one of the world's most respected news agencies, also compromised with the Nazi state. In 1935, the AP signed an agreement with the German government that allowed it to remain in the country while other foreign outlets were banned. The price was censorship. AP agreed not to publish materials critical of the regime and relied on photographs provided by Nazi-controlled agencies. Some AP photographers were members of the SS propaganda division, meaning their images were crafted to serve Nazi messaging. These photos were then distributed worldwide under the respected AP banner, giving Nazi propaganda international reach. This was not simply passive compliance. It turned a trusted news agency into a channel for regime-approved images at a time when controlling global perception was crucial for Hitler. The AP has since acknowledged this, but it remains one of journalism's darkest compromises. Continental, the German tire and rubber company, was indispensable to the Nazi war effort. It manufactured tires for tanks and trucks, rubber components for aircraft, and protective equipment like gas masks. But its most disturbing role was its use of forced labor. Continental employed thousands of concentration camp prisoners and foreign laborers under brutal conditions. In Sachsenhausen camp, prisoners were forced to march up to 40 kilometers a day testing prototype boots and shoes. Many collapsed and died during these grueling tests. Continental was not merely supplying products, it was exploiting human beings as disposable test subjects. This systematic use of slave labor and direct involvement in inhumane experiments makes Continental's wartime record one of the darkest among industrial firms tied to the regime. Finally, Lufthansa. While it was officially a civilian airline, in practice it was part of the Nazi military-industrial complex. In the 1930s, Lufthansa was used to train pilots and engineers who would later serve in the Luftwaffe. The airline also conducted covert reconnaissance flights disguised as civilian routes, gathering intelligence that supported German military expansion. Lufthansa became a prestige tool for Hitler, showcasing German technology abroad while serving as a cover for rearmament. After the war, the company was dissolved, but when West Germany refounded Lufthansa in the 1950s, it revived the same name and logo. Technically a different company, Lufthansa nonetheless inherited the legacy of an airline that had been used as a civilian front for Nazi militarization and expansion.